And let's call the regular meeting of the Village Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any additions, deletions, or changes to the proposed agenda for this evening?
There were late additions, but everything's been updated in your packet.
Roll call.
President Schneider,
Present.
President Pro Tem Dyke,
Present.
Councilmember Feldman,
Present.
Councilmember Glasser,
Present.
Councilmember Kuligowski,
Present.
Councilmember Powell,
Present.
Councilmember Steffler. Present.
Communications, we have the annual notice from the DDA Executive Director as the informational meeting that's required by statute to be held, and that is going to occur on December 20th, 2023, 6 p.m. and again on December 21st, 2023, as indicated in the correspondence provided to us by Angela Edwards, the DDA Director. That's an annual matter.
Is there, so there's no, in the statute, there's no duration between meetings, like once every 6 months? Not,
2 in a row. Yeah.
I mean, because everything we're going to get on Wednesday night is going to be the exact same stuff that we get on Thursday night. No different thing. I'm guessing the requirement of 2 meetings a year is so that they're kind of apart from each other. And
That was the norm in the past. I haven't had an opportunity to discuss that with the DDA Director. My recollection is 6 months apart.
Yeah, the 2 meetings a night back to back to meet a requirement. It's like checking a box. It's
Yeah,
not.
it's
not
absolutely
really
what
serving
it
the
is.
community.
Yeah, I think that would be more appropriate. Well, first of all, we'll see if Angela survives tonight's meeting.
well, and I was going to ask, we haven't seen her at one of our meetings in what,
4 or 5 minutes.
at least.
What?
Well,
Months.
no, we
No.
did one. No, we did once after the Heritage Festival.
No, and didn't we see her in advance of the parade? Oh, we did.
To be brought up. It will.
I mean, because we did change the position from part-time to full-time. And we see the director less now than when it was part-time.
I don't know if that's the case. Okay. We will
See how that goes.
request that she comes to the next meeting.
We
If
have
there's anything
differing
to
opinions
discuss.
as far as her performance is concerned, but something we can be looking into in greater detail. Any further commentary on that, Pete?
No.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the regular meeting minutes for our December 5 meeting, minutes, excuse me. I edited and they look just fine to me. Anybody else on council have any commentary regarding the minutes for our December 5 meeting? General fund. Sorry, major streets, local streets, Parks and Recreation Fund, Downtown Development Authority Fund, sewer fund, water fund, equipment fund, payroll register report.
Before we jump over, I don't know which fund it is. It says other administrative activities. Did we give a donation or something to the Michigan High School Athletic Association? I mean, it's AA football championships. I know that the school went
That was
to.
under the DDA.
Which is permitted by law to.
But that's kind of why I question
Donations.
it, because it's like, okay, what is that for? I guess I didn't know.
If memory serves, it was the good luck to the football team at districts in the bulletin, the MHS, from what I remember.
Since your wife sits on the DDA board, you might inquire of her.
Yeah, I'm going to, because it's $275.
It's on page 6 of 9 of the warrant. It's on page 12.
Anything else, Pete? Payroll register report. Just for a moment. Yes. We are recessing. Locked away.
Yes. Sequestered.
That's the right term, sequestered. Okay. So let's see. I think we're about to do. Oh yeah. DPW monthly report for November. Included therein is the monthly water usage report. Wastewater treatment plant monthly report for November. Police report with a little more detail, Mindy. Something. Yes, a little more information. Although there was some information there that is somewhat concerning, especially as far as our part-time officers. At least we're being kept up to date on that. And
Right, and that's the kind of information that's helpful for us to be aware of.
It was also helpful to know how many guns got confiscated and destroyed.
mhm.
We do exit interviews, do you know? If they're willing to, I mean, I know it's voluntary, just to understand why.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Mhm.
it's something that we can correct, or if it's just that, you know what, sign of the times, don't want to do it part-time anymore. That's-
OEO report.
That report got cleaned up, which is good to see. It was getting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
real long.
Permit report, Construction Code Authority. Financial position report.
All the information on ICS was very helpful, because we were, wondering about how the money was invested and all that. And having all these graphs and seeing their money layout of where their stuff is at was very helpful. Thank you. That was good.
Clerk Treasurer's memorandum to council. One item that I found particularly interesting in that memorandum is when you indicate that there's it says citizens initiative ballot relating to property taxes. I presume at this point in time that there have not been sufficient signatures collected, so we know it's going to be on the ballot.
Correct. We haven't gotten notification that
Okay.
there has been enough.
So if this was successful, we could just shut down the village. We wouldn't have any revenue.
Yeah, basically. We would have no, yes.
Yeah, kind of fits along with we don't want government. It's like, what the heck is that? Okay, so we're not hearing anything that is particularly viable. Okay, all right. All right.
Also on the clerk treasurer report, sometimes we don't recognize this kind of thing, but we ordered that work software program, and it was a big investment, but it wasn't a big investment. But the returns on this, if I'm correct, I mean, we're seeing the DPW charts now. You guys are getting water lines and that kind of stuff in here. It's just like one of those small things that people don't see that really has brought us into this century for a lot of different things. And sometimes that just goes unnoticed. So I appreciate all your guys' hard work on
It's
this.
still only half of what we do.
No, I know. No,
It's slow working.
no, I know, but just, I mean, when you were in here, when the intern gave his presentation and we were looking at those, diagrams from 1955.
Yes.
It makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. And sometimes we just overlook those kind of things. So it's appreciated.
Okay, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Motion made by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember Steffler, to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Objections? Unanimously approved. And we have all council members in attendance tonight. Exciting. And now is the time on our agenda for public comment addressing any of the items that are on our regular agenda for this evening. Is there any public comment this evening? Being none. Regular agenda item number 1, 2024 meeting dates. Are we going to need motions for the meeting dates for each of these entities?
No, they
So-
could all be in one motion.
Okay.
Is there a motion approving them or entering them into the record?
Approving them and for posting. what I
Okay.
mean. Yeah.
There were a couple that you wanted to discuss though,
Okay.
right?
Yes, there are a couple I need to discuss with you. The first one is the first meeting of the year, January 2nd. our office is closed, we can keep it on January 2nd, or we can move it to January 3rd. It is your preference.
Do you have a preference?
Third, but.
Oh, that's why I asked. Moving to Wednesday would be fine with me. And one, sometimes people are not feeling too well the day after New Year's Day. It's January 2nd. And we had a very consequential, not so great meeting previous years on January 2nd, going back a few years. January 3rd would be fine with me. What's feeling the rest of council? Moving it to Wednesday.
It's fine with me.
Schedule.
If not, it's.
If it works for the majority, it's fine with me.
Somebody will have to make a motion.
Well,
to-
before we do
Still,
that.
Yeah, we still have
Still
point number 2.
Yeah, I think the important one, is February 20th.
Can we supersede the meeting according to charter?
As long as it's posted, we can make the change. But this meeting room will not be available because it has to be available for early voting for the February election. So it has to be under lock and key, basically.
Why is it not available for 10 days?
It's 9 days early voting.
Thank you, legislature.
Yes.
Okay, that's my stuff.
And that happens every election, just so you know. So
It's a relatively new development, the early
Yes.
voting.
the early
I
voting, yes.
think I've heard some commentary even from you about the pleasures of early voting.
If we inquired with the fire department or the schools if we could utilize their facilities for.
I have not, I wanted council's discussion first before. We could all cram into the conference room. But.
Eh,
Be the first meeting where we have 10 visitors.
Exactly. And they all want to.
Right. SRO, standing room only. I would prefer if we could still have a February 17 meeting, put it over to
Okay.
the end of the month. Thing.
Yeah.
So if there's another facility that's available,
Okay, all right, I will inquire about that. But we can, at least I can post it and then, the location to be determined.
Brian's guys need training getting the trucks in and out, so he could just pull them out of the garage for the night.
You say the word, I'll set up the tables. I'll turn the heat on 9 days before you get there.
Might get that pole barn quicker.
Field trip.
Yeah, so I will inquire with the fire department and the school to see if they have availability for that date. But I have enough notice to, send it out, the location.
So we can make the motion at this point, assuming we're going to do the February 2nd meeting in February, and if that becomes a change, it would be on another agenda item in the next meeting in January.
Correct.
Is there any other discussion points with any of these other?
Nope, ZBA approved their meeting dates at last Thursday's meeting, so, and the planning commission approved theirs, and so did the Parks Board as well, so.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we set and approve all the meeting dates for the above referenced boards, with the only change being that the first village council meeting of January will be held on Wednesday, January 3rd, instead of Tuesday, January 2nd, and all the others as presented.
Question is, the February park board meeting, is that Wednesday when you want to have it?
No, it'll have to move. I was going to ask the same thing. It's on February 22nd.
Oh, yes, I will remind them of that. Thank you for pointing it out.
exclude the park board? Should we exclude the park board schedule within this approval and do it next meeting?
I would say approve it as is, and then again, we can
Okay.
make any changes.
It's like a location
Yep.
change or something.
And I'll support.
Okay, motion by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember Kukowski. Any further discussion?
I had one question. Is there a reason why the August 7th and November 6th are on Wednesdays as well?
Elections. The primary in August and the general in November.
We can still use this room?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Objections? Unanimously approved. We now move on to regular agenda item number 2, which is the interim village manager interviews. Mr. Kerberson is here this evening. Welcome. And so would you care to make a very brief presentation to council before we enter into the interview questions? Just to lay a tiny bit of groundwork. We've seen your responses to the questions we posed.
Okay. I thought I'd start out by
Hi, Steve.
Ed Kuligowski.
Sir. Nice to meet you. So, you guys, I checked, you got my resume in the packet and the answers to my questions. If you don't know, I was city manager in Lapeer for a number of years, and before that, the big city of Marlette right up the street. So, and before that, a harbor master. So I've been in the municipal government increasing position for 30 years, starting as a department head and moving on up. And I'm pretty familiar with all facets of government. I've been in Almont several times. I've known at least 3 or 4 of your past. I can go all the way back to John Shea, that we were friends and still friends. So I know quite a bit about the community, but only very surface stuff. So I'll be very brief, so I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. So, some, especially the newer council members, what we try to do is give each council member an opportunity to ask questions. And what I suggest, and let me know what you all think, Tim, Mindy, Kim, each council member ask like 2 questions, then move on to the next council member. And well, that would be 14, but we only have 13. Actually, if we had a couple more, we actually would have 15. So that sound fine to everybody? We do it in that fashion?
Yeah.
Okay. Wayne, you want to start?
Sure. So I guess we'll start at 1 here. How does your educational background relate to the position?
Well, first, I also wanted to say too that it's unfortunate that I'm here. I know David, and I have talked to him to find out how he's progressing. And like I said, it's unfortunate that I'm here, but I'm happy to help him and help you guys out at the same time. So my education started out CMU, graduate, public administration, and then I added on things as I worked in the career. You'll see that I'm certified in asphalt because we do a lot of road projects in municipalities, and I like to know what we're dealing with. I took leadership classes, various different things to help me work with staff and with the commission's council to be as effective of a communicator as possible. Is there anything specific you were thinking about?
Yep.
Okay.
Move on to the next one, Wayne? You want to move on to the next one?
Describe for us your previous work experience that is relevant to this position.
Sure. If you go all the way back to the 90s, I started out working in the city of Lapeer. That's where I worked in Harvard to begin with, and I did my internship there in the planning department and with the city manager there. But each role that I've had since then has been progressive responsibility with the municipality. I've worked with all the different departments. So again, after Port Huron, I was in Port Sanilac. I ended up in Marlette it was my first city manager job, almost 10 years. Was great experience. And then I applied to the city of Lapeer. They put me on in 2004, and I just retired this April from there. So, and again, I was city manager. We had, DPW, police, fire, parks and rec, all the major departments, housing. So I have experience with all those groups and all those department heads. And I look forward to working with the staff.
Okay, well, I'll go off script since there's only 13 questions. So you've been in Marlette, you've been in Lapeer, two greatly different populations. How do you think you can draw a corollary between the smaller Marlette and Elmont and then a larger Lapeer and Elmont?
Well, are you saying how would I work on things?
Yeah.
As an example, one of the great things that I have learned in my career is having access to different people, different groups. It really is a lot of times who you know and how you can get things done. So when you're working in a small community, I'm going to be spending the first several days getting to know all the staff well enough so I can reach out and ask them, what would you do? Or, in a sense of, if I propose doing this, would it be too grand of a scale? Is it too much? Is it appropriate for the resources? Of course, I wouldn't go over your budget. That is important to me, the details. I'm very budget oriented. So I think that having a smaller group, I would get to know the people, the players quicker, and I'd be able to interact directly with them. One of the things I was going to ask before I leave tonight, how do you guys dress each day in the office, that sort of thing? Because I know that if I wear a suit, people seem intimidated. They don't want to come in. They don't want to talk to you. So when I was in Marlette, I never wore a suit and tie because the citizens they didn't like that. They wanted you to be an everyday guy they could walk in and talk to. So I would ask about that. Of course, it's up to you guys, but it's just something I learned over the years, be approachable and work with the crowd that you're experiencing. I don't know if that answered your question.
Kind of, the relation between the smaller and larger communities and how Elmont fits in there for you.
Well, one of the things, we had our own police department, you have your own police department, but we had our own fire department, and you guys have a cooperative group, don't you? So you wouldn't have necessarily direction over them or have to worry about that department. Or, some of the bigger ones that we had, the departments we had in Lapeer. So again, be able to spend more time on the ones that are here and focus on.
Okay. So I'll stay off script for my next question as well. So I know that since you were in Lapeer, you probably have a lot of connections at the next level up. And David was working on quite a few things with a couple of our representatives, state and federal. Just wondering what your thoughts are around about keeping those connections live and moving forward.
I did have a lot of interaction with the state reps, the state senators, and the congressman as well. Lisa McLean and I have talked. I reach out. I have no problem reaching out and getting a hold of those people. I made some comments like that in my notes back to you that is where I would be able to help, I think, a lot, because we were able to parlay some of our projects into bigger projects. I know how MDOT links, say, a road grant with a support, draw a blank on the name, when you do the sidewalks and the stuff around the project, you get to plug that in if you ask for it independently. Those type of things that I have experience with would help. Yes, and I talked to David about a couple of those too, but I'm very familiar with Lisa McLean and Lisa Green and Brett Green up north and our state senator, very active with all of them. So yeah, I'd be happy to do those things.
That's good. Thank you.
I'm going to take Pete's number 4 because I think it's more important than 5, and it correlates in with. So, please describe your experience managing and supervising municipal employees, and how would you describe your style? Number 1. I'm going to do a small add-on to that because we had another interim. Experience before, and that kind of the communication between the interim and all manager heads went south a little bit. So could you kind of give us your overall experience and how your management style and how you'll incorporate that into this situation, because it's not an easy situation to come into to be running the ship and not have been here before. So.
Right. Well, again, I have David for a reference, but I don't want to call on him unless I would absolutely have to. I have experience with multiple unions and departments. I like being involved, being physically in the departments on a regular basis, getting to know everyone. I have an open door policy. Anyone can come in and ask, talk about any topic. And I don't take offense if my comments or whatever are questioned. I hope that I would be able to relate to every department head because I've got a lot of experience being with their counterparts and those sort of things. We're going to know a lot of the same people that work. We work in a lot of the same ways that we want to move things forward.
So what will be your strategy coming in to, one, get yourself in tune with what's going on in each department, but also start to build a relationship with the department heads?
Sure. I've been thinking about that. Okay. Because almost as though I would be taking on a new full-time job, I would still want to, again, visit each department, sit down with them, look at what they're doing, get in a vehicle, drive around the entire community, look at each project they're doing once they just finished, what they're looking for. And I know you guys have a capital improvement program, so you're going to be they'll be telling you what they're looking down the road at for next year's budget, those sort of things with each and every department. And from there, we'll get to know. We'll be in the car. We'll spend time together and learn what's important and not important.
My other question was actually number 6, but with that stated, I missed. What will be your strategy to get yourself a collaborative relationship with council?
Oh, well, I know that it's very difficult to get together as a group because you can't mess with quorum. But so when I had a new commissioner come on board, we would get in the car and we literally spent, my introduction to the community took 8 hours. We were in the car all day from site to site, all over town in buildings, going to lunch, all that sort of stuff. I'd like to do that on a smaller scale with each and every one of you. learn what is important to you too, because when it comes time for us to work on the budget, which is coming up quickly, that I want to make that go smoothly and not take, a dozen hours over 3 days. I'd like to be able to get through it in one meeting and at the same time know what's important to you as individuals.
The other question was, and you're kind of doing it now, can you describe your public speaking experience and how, obviously you're doing well in front of us, but in front of a public forum or whatever, like our school board tonight's in front of a massive, intensive crowd. So how would you handle a situation like that?
Well, I'm used to having the police chief at the meeting, sitting there to, it just automatically casts a calm on the crowd. But I'm used to many contentious meetings. I joke, I've only raised my voice twice in hundreds and hundreds of commission and planning commission meetings. Both times were because somebody in the audience was being incredibly rude to the other audience members and the commissioners, and it just finally got under my skin so far that I yelled at them. But I'm used to the pressure of an intense group, or if there's a particular topic, try to be really well prepared so I can talk to them. And I like to meet them before they even have to come here and deal with it. And have them into the office or go to their office, home, whatever it took, to see exactly what's going on and what the issue is.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
One of the interesting questions that was posed to you, went slightly off script, a major issue in the village for a number of years has been the DPW building, where all the equipment is supposed to be stored and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that equipment needs to be protected in with the size of our garage at this point, or that building at this point in time is inadequate, but it's a very expensive project. So I know that you answered it to some degree, but I'd like to hear verbally how you would approach addressing that problem. It's a real priority, but price is a real concern.
Well, it will be important for me to see exactly what the conditions are. I know I've been in the building, but it's probably been 4 or 5 years ago. So what do you have now that's expanded it beyond its capacity? What are you looking for in the future? Are you going to get your own Vector truck? Do you have 1 or 2 loaders? That type of thing. Where are you going to go and exactly how much space you'll need? And then we look at, as I said in my comments, these kind of municipal projects are hugely important to the citizens. They want to take great pride in it. They want to be able to be there when you break the ribbon the first day. And it is expensive, taxpayer dollars. We all want it to be spent the best possible way. So it'll take some research to get rolling. But I also think my experience would tell me that there's potentially some money available to build one of those. So if you can put a real good case together and look to build something that's, say, 100% bigger than what you have now, that would be great. And if you could do it with somebody else's money, that's even better.
Sure. By chance, have an example where you've closed the gap like we're seeing right now? Because we have $650,000 budgeted and we're looking at $1.2 million came in the first engineering quote. So
sure. And I know that'll end up being low because the way things are going in construction these days, cement's more than doubled in cost, all that kind of stuff. There are USDA, there's different groups you can go to look for support on a project like that. Again, it really would be based on what you're adding or what has changed that you need this bigger building for. If it's just because you want a prettier building, you're not going to get a lot of support for that. But if it's a water related, sewer related, there will be pots of money out there available. I can give you an example. It was a pet project of the community in Lapeer. When I did my very first plan and goals and objectives, I talked about putting a tunnel in Lapeer. Originally, it was to go M24 under the railroad tracks, so we didn't have to have that constant problem of stopping. They get 58 trains a day in town. So we did end up building a tunnel under M24 that is a pedestrian tunnel. But with that project came great expense. It was $500,000 just to put the tunnel in. And you had to build the approaches, the area to come out by the property that we needed. We ended up getting enhancement grants. That was the word I was looking for from MDOT to help us on that project, build the ramp, extend the tunnel, and MDOT ended up paying 80% of the actual tunnel itself. So if you get a little bit of time to look at it from all different angles, you can usually find some money out there, especially right now. There seems to be a lot of money available. So, and that project, in the end, it's probably a full $1 million project that will cost the city around $300,000.
Sorry, Steve, but. Oh, no problem. We want to get the conversation going. As part of a major duty facet of being village manager is negotiating, whether it's with various unions that we have to deal with or any other contracts or binding agreements that may enter into. So give us a brief description of your negotiating style, how you approach negotiations.
Well, everybody says I'm a really tough negotiator, but I have a great relationship with all my unions. We try to be upfront, honest, direct, but I like to think outside the box on things, and I can be a fairly tough negotiator in the sense that I'm not just looking at one little thing that might be the main topic. I try to look at the whole picture and see, how the expenses, what all's involved and why, and make a decision that is good for everyone. So that's one of my favorite parts of the job, though, is negotiating with everybody. Working to get what's best for the city and what everybody here wants to have.
Sure. I'm going to go back a little bit on our list and catch us up. What kinds of skills do you think are important for a village manager to have?
Well, I think you have to be very approachable. Someone that the people can come and talk to, that the council people can come and talk to, that the department heads can come and visit, or even employees. That is very important in any job, but specifically when you're at the village level. You wear a lot of hats. You're involved in a lot of things. So, say the question again.
Sure. Just what kind of skills do you think are important for a village manager?
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely the ability to listen. That the term skill kind of makes me think of listening. You have to be a good listener. I'm not one that reacts quickly. I like to think about the different ramifications and taking my time, but I also like to get things done. So I think probably the two best skills would be being approachable and listening to your.
Thanks. Can you provide an example of a successful municipal project you were part of, and what was your role?
Well, let's use one that took a lot of negotiating.
Sure.
I don't know if you've driven down I-69 and noticed the little solar field on the right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that until a few months ago was the largest solar project east of the Mississippi. So the beginning to end story on that is very interesting. And it'll take a minute, but I think it might answer some questions. DTE was looking for people to do a small solar project with with. They were talking about 1 acre sites, 2 acre sites, demonstrations years ago. I met with them. I called every person I knew at DTE, every representative I'd worked with in the past, to let them know that Lapeer wanted to be that place. We had an awesome spot for it. We had college campuses, high school, grade school campuses. We were right around the spot for an educational tool. We didn't get one. The first one, they did 12 of them across the state. We didn't get one. I was very disappointed. But they came back 2 years later and said, you were so aggressive about that. We're putting you on the short list for the big one. So we negotiated with them, and in the end, that solar farm is about 500, 600 acres. It's 100% on city property. They're paying us lease for the land every month. They're also paying us personal and real property tax for all of the things that were built there. And we got a very extensive educational component out of it, that they built the solar array with a bunch of displays for the school kids to be able to be brought over, show how it works. And they came up with a program to take to the schools and teach the kids 6th grade and down about solar energy and how it works and why you use it. And then we had an annual event where they would come and set up tents and tour the solar fields, and anybody in the county could come and see it. That started from just, initially hearing about the idea of DTE wanting to do a solar project. So that was a successful solar project. It brings in $1 million a year to the county, and I forget, it's about $500,000 a year to the school system, and a pretty good chunk to the city of Lapeer annually too.
Great, thank you.
And I can go on if you want. Street projects, water line.
I think that was a good example.
We're just wrapping up a $2 million water line project that included the street work. That was a horrible line for the city. It broke all the time. Filed a grant and requesting got it. We linked it with a lead line replacement project, and we ended up doing 3 different searches to find all of our lead lines, but now those are all gone. The water lines in. It took about 2 years. It was a $2 million grant, $4 million grant. I keep it on.
I think that's good. Nope, that's good. I'll pass it over to you, Ed, if you want to.
Okay, so one of the things that what I've seen with the departments and stuff here in the village of Elmont is there's been some synergies where the departments are beginning to work together and support each other instead of working in a bubble. Have you ever experienced anything like that, or fostered or promoted that sort of activity?
Oh yeah, when I started with Lapeer, everybody was in their own silo, and they fought over the money available versus working together during budgeting to get all the projects done. We cut right through that in no time, because I tried to bring everybody in. We worked together as a group, department heads. We had department head meetings. We were having them weekly, and it trickled down to as needed after a year or two. But it was pretty easy to get everybody on the same page that what's good for you is good for you. We're all in the same boat. And anyone that didn't want to get involved in that ended up retiring. So it wasn't an all or nothing, but in the end, it turned out being all or nothing. And I really like it when all the department heads get together and talk and work on their problems. And then you learn about the things that each different group wants to do, so they can end up doing together and get economy of scale on, say, security system upgrades or something like that. Computer system purchases that would be used across the village instead of just one department.
So I guess to get back on track here just a little bit, this is kind of a softball question, but so you said you retired. But why you want to get back in the game again?
That is an interesting question. I don't, none of you are old enough to be looking like you're planning to retire. But as I was planning to retire, I started setting up things that I wanted to do in retirement, projects. I have a cabin up north, things I wanted to do there, things I wanted to do at home. And in retirement, and I would do those things. It would keep me busy, right? Well, I've had a very busy summer, super busy summer. And amazingly, I've knocked 90% of the things off that list. I just finished installing a 45-foot TV antenna tower at my cabin so that I can pick up TV from all over the place. That was on the list. I had all the components for years, but never did it. So I've cleared those type of things off my list, and the timing is perfect in that. Can't do a lot of things outside in the winter. I'm willing to help out as long as needed, but it was brought initially as a 4-month project, which puts me back to the summer, and then I can start doing other things that I wanted to do in retirement that weren't project related, like fishing or something like that. So it's just happens to be the perfect timing for me that I'm slowed down on my project list, and I'm available and willing to come and stay busy for 4 months.
So is it safe to say that you're available for full-time work?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
I put that in there. I'm used to, we worked as a team, didn't matter who it was, we pulled together to get things done. So if I need to be there 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, I would be here, because that's important to me. I like to be responsible and make sure things get completed. So
Excellent. All right, thank you.
I think a little bit about the office hours that we have here. You guys are 7 to 5, Monday through Thursday. So with some exceptions, I don't know. And our DPW staff obviously isn't 4 days a week, but it's, yeah, that was the one part of the question was your availability for after-hour meetings, that sort of thing. I mean, you're quite familiar with that as part of being the manager.
My last child at home is in college, so I have no restrictions for night meetings. There would be no conflicts, and I'm used to night meetings. I didn't know if you would want your person at your council meetings.
Oh, yes.
I was at every single one before, but I didn't know if you would want that. And I'm happy to do those things.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for you, Steve, but our expectation would be the manager would be at all council meetings. And then as far as planning.
As well, planning commission, yes. Our board.
So does
ZBA.
Would I have a vote on the plan commission, or just?
No, only the commission members have a vote, but you are there to oversee, inform. They're obviously planning commission a lot of issues to discuss, and when David was here, he always played a major role at planning commission. Occasionally, he would also attend Downtown Development Authority as well, which is a pretty important organization. Almont is right now upward direction as far as enhancing our downtown. Our industrial parks pretty much filled up. It's very positive direction. And David has been pretty much involved in all of those, and has had an effect which sometimes is hard to clearly identify and discern why, but all we know is since he got here, we've just been an upward tick. So yeah, so the more of those organizational meetings you can attend, I think the more they're enhanced by your being there, because you can add so much. And then also whatever you see at those meetings, you can bring back to council. But yeah, we very much want your participation at all levels.
And again, that wouldn't be a I'm used to. For years, I've had a vote on the planning commission, so I'll just have to talk when.
Sure. Speak when spoken to.
Yeah, absolutely, that's part of the job, I know that going in. Meetings are an important part of the job.
Absolutely. Steve, did you have a?
Yeah, I did have a question, kind of building off what Ed said about your retirement from Lapeer. So I'm new to Lapeer County, so I don't really have a lot of historical knowledge. But while I was doing some background research on you, I found an article in the county press about your retirement, and it sounds like there was some disagreements between you and council that at one point in 2022 you were almost voted out as city manager, and then later that year there was like a unexpected retirement announcement. So I couldn't really understand from the article what had happened, but I'd like to hear your side of the story, because I think council, we are concerned about communication, from the questions that have been asked. And I'd like to understand your side of the story, and because it was kind of confusing to me, because you had almost 2 decades of experience as city manager. So it was kind of confusing to me how it all came to an end like that.
Well, it's interesting. It was very interesting how things unfolded in Lapeer after, like you said, nearly 2 decades. When I was talking about retiring, I was referring to the fact that I would have officially retired 1 year from this month. That was what my contract said. I had an extensive contract with the city. It was in place before the seated commission that I had the conflict with came on board. So we had an unbelievable change at the city of Lapeer in the blink of an eye. We had 4 years ago, I had an awesome commission that I worked with all the time. We got along great. Everything was going good. Everything in the city was good. We were having off the chart growth, success everywhere. We were the one that grew in the census. Everything was going great. So a couple of my long-term commissioners said, they were in their 80s, and they said, we're ready to step out, step back, and go off the commission. It's a 5-member commission and a mayor. The mayor doesn't have a vote in Lapeer. So 2 commissioners were stepping down. They announced that roughly 2 months before the election, a very short time in the municipal world. Almost immediately, the mayor, longtime mayor that I'd worked with, said, "Oh, sorry everybody, I'm taking a job out of state." So now the mayor's role opens up. The mayor pro tem then wanted to become mayor. At that meeting, she was not voted in, and at a subsequent meeting, the commission did not place her in that role. She got very upset about that and resigned her council seat to run for mayor. So now that's 3 open council seats and the mayor in one election with roughly, it's like 2 months before the election. That mayor brought a group of friends to the table. They ran unopposed, and overnight we had a complete change in direction of the way the city commission saw things and where it should go. In my opinion, it was a 180-degree turn the opposite direction. But we worked together for years. Then we have elections every 2 years. We had a new person come on. One of my strong supporters on the commission was running. They had a person, she had a person running against her, or him. Just before the ballots were to be printed, we even had test ballots already, he died. A seated commissioner. So that opened that seat. That person ran unopposed. And now we have 4 new commissioners out of 5. And they were all of the same group, let's say, in the city. Their focus was they were laser focused on one topic and one topic only. It changed the face of Lapeer overnight. You guys probably know what that is. So, again, I still worked along with them. I got decent reviews, that sort of thing, but then I learned there were some things going on in the background. A commissioner, I don't know, this really isn't public knowledge, but the end result is I went to them and said, what you're doing is inappropriate. It's against your sworn oath. We're done here. And I said, this is what I'm asking you to buy me out. And they voted right then and there to buy me out of that contract I had that would have expired next December. So that's why it wasn't very clear in the paper, but it doesn't, I mean, you can easily look at Lapeer and see what has changed so dramatically. And the direction of the town has changed, in my opinion, too. So,
A follow-up on that a bit. I've informed various members of council that, one, I had conferred with City Commissioner Bostic, who happens to be a fellow attorney, and indicated, one, that she gave very good ratings to Mr. Kerberson in terms of his ability to run the city, especially budget-wise, and the city running smoothly, and a right and wrong sort of person, as he mentioned. And so if you're wrong, it's like, no. And that his termination was not as a result of any inappropriate or improper conduct in his part, but this brand new council. And you see that happening frequently in various communities when you get brand new council members and they want to get on the governmental entity, because out in social media or in the public, they say god awful things about the government that's running them, and they get on council not really knowing what they're talking about, and then they find out what's really going on. And got even more complimentary comments from Caitlin Haben, who is our village planner and also worked closely with Dale, and said the same thing, that they've been excellent to work with, and very adamant that his termination there was not of his doing. It was that board. And so that's politics. And the statistics I've seen is the average life of a manager in a community is like 4 to 6 years, because of politics. People want to see a change, and they think it's going to make a difference. And half the time, and this happens even in our community here, whatever you see in social media, they have no idea what they're talking about. There's a lot of criticism, and like, do you actually know what's going on? And of course, they don't show up here to actually find out. So I just wanted to follow up on that, because newspaper articles, I mean, they want to make news, so they want to make it controversial if possible, and the reporting is not necessarily accurate portrayal of what actually occurred. And that's why I talked to both of these people. So people who had actually worked with Dale. So I just wanted to follow up on that, because I thought it's an important issue, because so how were you going to check things out? So you would check out this newspaper article and what happened back then, and gives a certain impression, which may not have been accurate at all. So
That was the intention behind my question, because it sounded like there was something more to it.
Mhm.
And for
Yeah.
not being in the area, I didn't really know the history.
well, and as you can see from reading the stories, there was no public outcry. There was no public battle between the commission and I. It was an agreement, a mutual agreement, and I retired. So, yeah, the vote was really out of the blue, but again, it was this entirely new commission, and it started a ripple effect. Well, you can keep reading the paper.
Right. Okay.
You're supposed to ask two questions.
Yeah, so I'll give you the easy one at the end. Do you have any questions for us?
Well, I do have some questions. They can be, if you did select me, they can be worked out or talked about later. But I was curious how many hours, what was the intent, if it was 2 days a week or 5 days a week? I'd be curious what your intent would be. Of course, it'll take more in the beginning to get to know things and get involved, but it all depends exactly on what you direct me to do. So that was one of the questions. How does the office staff, how do you dress? What's appropriate? Is it suit and tie, or is it Dockers and a clean white shirt kind of a thing? So those kind of everyday working questions are really what I have down the road.
I think that, one, obviously, we would want you to be at least on the same schedule that the village staff is. And I'm sure you're fully aware of this, that when you're in a manager's position, it is not necessarily, or probably not at all, a 40-hour a week job. Often lots of hours. So that's what would be expected. I think, certainly in my opinion, I think most council agrees with this, is we're looking for a full-time manager, and so that's what we would be looking at. So it's not an easy job, and it's a small town, so a lot falls upon the manager to cover so many various aspects of the village, whereas large communities, especially the larger cities, they have departments of this and this and this, and it doesn't all fall on your shoulders, and your shoulders will be sore. So there's that. And then the question you haven't raised, but certainly we want to ask, keeping in mind that this is a small village, so we're slightly under 3,000, what would be your expectations as far as compensation?
Well, that is a great question, and I really don't know. I haven't done the research to see what other interim managers receive. I'm not even sure I know what David made as a salary. I don't need health care, so that isn't something that would be required. So it takes a big expense off the table. I don't know if you provide a car or not, but I wouldn't need you to provide me a car. I would think it'd be appropriate to have a cell phone versus using my own, because it is potentially what's on it is the property of the village, and I would have to leave it when I left. So
Do that.
a cell phone, the day-to-day value, the hourly cost, I'm just not familiar. Now, you guys have had an interim in the past, so I'd be willing to look at what their compensation was. I know probably 20 years ago, it was a little longer than that, I was doing consulting work. While I was the manager of Marlette, I was also helping the village of K-Pac here and there on different projects. So, I remember what that compensation was. It was just an hourly rate. So
We're looking at salary.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's basically what we're looking at. We have a better grip on the budget and the financial aspects of that, if in fact is salary. And of course, that's what our manager now on leave was on, salary.
Right.
So certainly you can be informed as to what his compensation was. if yours, what your expectation was in line with what he was being paid, that has potential. So, okay. Right, anybody else on council have any further inquiries?
What's your travel time to get here?
I think it's right around 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
25, 30 minutes. It's 18 miles to the exit, roughly, and then I was gonna measure how many miles down, but I got distracted and I forgot to look, so. It's 6.
It's
6 or
6.
7 miles down
Yeah.
from 69.
Yep.
So, yeah.
If we decided to move forward with you and we came to terms, what's your availability to start?
Tomorrow. I mean, I'm available. You know, I have things that I got going on, but nothing, nothing set in stone or required. I'm not going on any trips, nothing like that, so.
So I think you said you were pretty able to commit to 4 months. Beyond that, is that negotiable as well? Because I think it's a little uncertain of when David might be able to return.
Right, and that is fine to you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Anybody else on council? Anything further?
Or staff? Any questions?
We know.
Speak freely. Dale, I'm the DPW supervisor, so we have the plans, we have the capital improvements, we have all that stuff. I've been doing it for almost 20 years. We need results. Can you bring results? Can you get our roads done? Can you get new water mains replaced? Can you build a new building for us? I mean, we purchased a $90,000 leaf vac and we have to store it at a shop uptown.
Is it a roll-off trailer or is it a solid?
It's a solid trailer unit,
One-man operation?
2-man.
Okay.
Can you bring results? That's my question.
Well, it's, as long as the commission is willing to move forward, absolutely. I mean, funding is the key to many of those things. And if there isn't a grant or something available, there's, bonding, there's all kinds of things. And I'm very familiar with all that stuff.
Okay.
So, absolutely.
So
As much as you want to do, we can do it.
I get 2 questions, right? I'm going to speak on behalf of all the staff on this question. We do a lot of, training to our managers. It seems like we get, the department heads have to, educate and train managers. All the department heads would like somebody to help and train us on what other communities are doing.
Sure.
I mean,
Well,
is that fair?
Yes, that's fair.
I'm not going to say that I know what's going on here, but I'm very familiar with the wastewater treatment plant. 2 different types of them. And I'm not shy about being in them and work. I know how they work and what you need to do. And I work with DEQ and Eagle on a regular basis, or I did. I still do because I'm the president of our homeowners association and we have our own wells, so I interact with them on that as well. But I'm very familiar with the clerk's work. I'm got a lot of knowledge because again, I was a department head too to start with, and I'm hands-on, real common sense. I like to do things myself when it comes to my own house. Those sort of things. Very mechanically inclined, and I have a lot of opinions. So I would hope I can be a big help. And one of the things I did want to ask, this came to my mind several times. In other communities in this county, there is a lot of, what do you want to call it? I don't want to call it anger isn't the right word, but in Lapeer, we worked with everybody all the time. We tried to keep the work in the county. We tried to get our suppliers from in the city. And if you can't get it in the city, we get it in the county. Would you be upset, offended, irritated if references or resources or training comes from the county seat where people I know that are available and willing to help could be brought? Would that be something you would want to use, or you would not want to have anything to do with?
I think any tool you can bring to the table to improve what we're doing, use it. I mean, that just makes sense. I mean, put away the petty crap.
Absolutely.
Move forward.
Good. Well, but it is there. It really is there.
Oh, yeah,
I've known it for years.
Been here a long time myself, so yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. But to me, it's not an us versus them thing. We're a section of this community, and again, we don't want to act like we're in a silo either. It doesn't make any sense. So,
Well, and I can be pretty aggressive on your behalf with Eagle and DEQ and
Hopefully not
Do
too
you want-
aggressive. I work for Eagle.
She works
for
But in compliance.
All these groups, you know, they like to be intimidating, but they don't intimidate me, and I am happy to be, you know, with being professional, but still very aggressive on behalf of the village in working on with those groups too.
I think it's important that the board knows too, when we had the big water main break, Imlay City, Lapeer, and Elmont worked together. If I'm not mistaken, you guys received 100% reimbursement.
Darn right.
Everything,
We also got a $250,000 in grant money out of it.
really.
So it was available to everyone. We tried to get more people involved in how we got those DEQ and the state, because it was through emergency management, to give us that money. So, yeah, we ended up doing very well. We have new generators on all our wells because of VFDs.
We've had issues in the past, I won't say when, where, and I won't say it went rogue, but we had manager participation in probably not intended as a bad thing, but trying to be helpful, but still getting into situations that are more private orientated than publicly orientated. And another situation in the past with the other interim where they had connections with contractors working within the village and maybe were balancing interests of both instead of full interest to the village. So in those instances, how would you handle situations where you got approached by those sort of situations?
It's happened thousands of times. I treat the village's money like it's my own, and I am a tough negotiator, so, you know, but I want the rules to be followed, and I want to do what's best for the village. You know, if they want the work, they'll follow that stuff too. I'm familiar with a lot of your local business owners, some that have a lot of business in Lapeer. I don't have any difficulty working with them, telling them no, or working with them to get a yes too. So, you know, I understand what you're saying, and I don't see, that's not a problem for me, because it'll be on the village's best interest. So let me ask this question. Are you heading into any labor contracts or anything like that in the next 4 months? No. Just not something to get in the way and
Right.
clog things up. Okay.
Dress code is tuxedo.
Probably won't fit it, but-
So, okay, everybody all set?
Anything else? I got one more question. Did you get your overhead door?
Not yet.
It's on the agenda today.
Yeah, it's pending.
Yes.
All right, that's an interesting question.
Later in-
I happened to watch that meeting. It was right, I think you told me to watch just to see how things go. That was interesting. That's a interesting project, and it's on your list of questions too. So,
Agenda for this evening, so. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the time.
thank you.
Hopefully well spent.
Kim has my phone number. If you let me know how things go, I'd appreciate it. Because then I don't know what your timeline is, but I was planning to run up north for 2 or 3 days here, but I don't have to. So,
Timeline's going to be short.
Not quite that short.
Before Christmas.
I think you're
probably.
safe to go.
Okay. So at least open till Christmas.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys can stay here. So, all right. Well, it was very nice talking to you. I hope I was clear. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call me, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Good night.
Blessed holiday.
Good night. Bring you the next candidate.
Ask a couple questions, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and well, and just following up, the two parties that I interviewed that worked with him, he's a doer. Starts in a project and he gets it done. Very, very complimentary. And if it wasn't for that political upheaval, I presume it's relating to some substance.
All the new buildings?
Pardon?
You mean all the new buildings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that, he'd still be the manager there, more than likely. So, yeah, but both of them were, yeah, he focused on a project and he got it done. So he's a doer, which is a plus. Anybody want to have any further discussion before we bring in the next candidate?
So let's go.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, that has to be part of it.
So this is the hot seat.
Yep.
Without a seat.
It's a hot mic.
All right. Good evening, everyone. President of Council, I saw your name. Kim asked me just to do a brief introduction. Is that okay?
Yep.
Sure. All right. My name is Ted Andrzejewski, and well, let's start with education. I went to the University of Buffalo. That's where I grew up. Spent 25 years of my life in the cold and the snow of Buffalo, and followed the Super Bowls for 4 losses, and moved to Cleveland. Took a job at Cleveland, Eastlake, and we lived there ever since. I went to the John Carroll University, got an MBA, and worked in various management positions with some major companies. Then went into banking, and I did banking for about 15 years. Worked for KeyBank as a branch manager and other duties. Then, around 2003, the city I was living in, we were living in Eastlake. We had a not so good mayor, let me just put it that way, bordering on corrupt. And I had never done politics or government before, but I decided someone has to do something. So I ran for council and won, in spite of the mayor throwing everything he had against me so he could keep his people. And then started asking a lot of questions, got a couple of the other councilmen with me, and we found out a lot of things that were going on, and the mayor resigned. So then I ran for mayor and served as mayor of Eastlake for 10 years. Was reelected 2 times, and I did a great job. I mean, we straightened out everything, got the finances in shape, got the employees working together and doing a job for the people. Then, as all will have it, all of you, or a lot of you are elected officials, you know, you can be defeated. And I lost my last reelection attempt and was a little disappointed, but the people didn't show up to vote, plain and simple. And no matter what I told them, I said, well, you're a shoo-in. No, you got to go out and vote. They didn't go out and vote. And I lost by 150 votes, I think it was. If only 75 couples would have voted, I would have stayed there. So I decided I'm a good manager. I did a very good job in managing the city of Eastlake. So I went up to Menominee, Michigan, and served as their city manager for over 2 years. Liked it up there, very rural, hunting, fishing. Got my first experience when I was driving down the road to City Hall and saw bear bait. And I started thinking, what did I get myself into here? Bear bait. Then did Canandaigua, New York. The reason I went to Canandaigua is it was in the Buffalo area. It's Western New York. And I thought, okay, I'll get a chance to go back to my home area. And I was city manager in Canandaigua for over 2 years also. And went back to Ohio and served in Cadiz, Ohio for about pretty close to 3 years. And then retired. So I decided, okay, be a nice thing to do is to offer your services as an interim manager or temporary manager for cities anywhere that would need you. And my most recent, I was in Cascade, Michigan. Very, very nice city, very nice township. I served as their interim manager from June through the 3rd week of September. And did a very good job. And any of you are welcome to call the council people there or the town supervisor. They really had a lot of nice things to say about me. They said, just have anybody call who wants to. So, and then I went back to Ohio and got the call from Kim. So here I am. So I have a business degree in management from the University of Buffalo. I have an MBA from John Carroll University, specializing in finance. And I will tell you, financial management, overall managing of employees are my 2 biggest strengths. So that's me. Like sports, like golf, like football. I won't mention Ohio State and Michigan.
That's wise. But you could mention Detroit Lions.
Yeah. I saw you had two football players from here, one with Indianapolis. There were two brothers. Were they brothers from the early 2000s?
Ryan Clare from the late 90s played for, I think, the Patriots for 4 years.
Patriots, Claridge. There were two
Yep.
Claridges
Yep.
there. Was Trey Lance from here too? No. But I will tell you this, if Ohio State doesn't get in, then I always root for the Big Ten team. So I will be rooting for Michigan. Very, very hard to do that, but I'll be doing that.
I actually, one of the few times when I went there, I actually felt badly for Ohio State. I have a T-shirt that says, "You can always tell a Buckeye, but you can't tell them much." So good deal of animosity there. Good U of M, big U of M fan, but that game, I mean, I thought Ohio State was great. They played a terrific game, and Michigan just happened to be a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's as good a game as I've ever seen. And, Ohio State was, well, we just didn't do so. No, they actually played great. So
Somebody has to win, somebody has to lose,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And-
even in elections, right?
Yeah. I saw a great sign. I wish I could remember exactly what it was, but it had Jim Harbaugh holding up a sign. Why are we playing Alabama? I had already scouted Georgia.
Yeah. Well, yeah. 'Cause-
Not Georgia. Whoever they were going to play. Florida State. Yeah.
Right.
He said, I already scouted
Yeah,
Florida
they
State.
wanted, Florida State. And they're up against it. They're up against Saban, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Who's really good coach. So, anyway,
Hughes, could you
So-
tell us more about this Super Bowl thing you mentioned?
Yeah, it was rough. I mean, 4 times in a row,
Oh,
you know?
but we feel
Yeah.
bad for you.
And do you know that Detroit and Cleveland are 2 of the 3 teams to never make it to a Super Bowl?
mhm.
Mhm.
I know. I've been around a long time, and when I was a kid, the Lions were champions in the 50s. They won 3 or 4 champions. That was it. After that, nothing. It's
Well,
like,
we-
somebody put poison in the water at the clubhouse.
We in
Like, oh my
Cleveland
God.
feel your pain.
Yes,
Mhm.
lots of pain. We got
But anyway, I like
some of them
Michigan.
shot this year.
I
so.
like Michigan. I like Cleveland. Ohio and Michigan, 2 states that are almost the same. We have the same type of people, same type of industries, whatever.
Hey, Wayne, you want to get started on questions? We have some questions we want to ask.
Yeah,
Yes.
Ted.
I might
Mhm.
suggest that, can we call you Ted? Is that
Sure,
okay?
yeah.
So he kind of covered
Skip
1 and
one.
2.
Yeah.
Maybe start with 3 and then
Yeah,
we'll go
no
from
problem.
there.
Okay. What kind of skills do you think are important for a village manager to have?
Well, I think in a village, a little bit different than a big city, I think you have to have hands-on management. In a village, the 2 villages I served in, there's more hands-on activity. So I would say management of people, a good control of the finances. So I would say financial and management of the people and being willing to do a lot of different things. Because again, in a village, you don't have the staff that you have in a larger city. So
So for the next question, please describe your experience managing or supervising municipal employees, and how would you describe your style?
Well, I would say my style is not to be micromanager. I always believe that in government, you hire managers and let them manage their department, particularly things like police and fire, building department, where maybe you don't necessarily know everything about those departments. So I would definitely say a hands-off micromanager, but the employees need to know that someone is looking over their activities and their behaviors and their work performance and that. So I'd say hands-off, not a micromanager, but letting employees know that someone's watching them. I will also say I always have an open door, whether it be to the public or to the employees. Come in, talk to me. You know, if you've got something, a problem, we'll figure it out. If you have something you need to discuss with me, come on in and talk about it. Okay. I'm going to segue into this because Cascade had some problems with employees. They really did. And when I went in there, within a couple of months, we had that all worked out. The morale was better. The employees were better. We had more open communication, not only with the manager and among the departments, but with the township trustees. So I would say those things.
Obviously, you're standing in front of us speaking, so you're okay with public speaking, but how is your feel for larger groups of public speaking?
Oh, it's fine. I mean, I've done so many council meetings and committee meetings, and when I was in politics, we had debates. I would do presentations in front of chambers of commerce. I would do presentations in front of the public. I mean, as you all know, as public officials, sometimes you have issues. And when you have the issues, this room would be packed with people. Any room would be packed with people. So you have to be able to talk and communicate with in front of a larger audience. So I talk a lot, so I would have no problem talking. I mean, it comes natural.
So if you did come on as interim manager, what would you propose as a way to be collaborative with employees and learn about the village and what they do?
Well, I would do the same thing I did in Cascade. We instituted every other week meetings with department heads. They had never done that before. And we did it the day after the township trustee meeting. So then I was able to go into the meeting, tell the department heads that what happened at the meeting, what are the things going on. Then we would go around the room and discuss what activities each department is doing and whether or not the building department needs help from the service department or the police, whatever. So one thing I would do, if you don't do it already, is have bi-weekly department head meetings. And maybe there's not so many department heads here, so we could also include employees. I would say the other thing is just let everybody know, come again, the open door policy, come in and talk to me. If you have a problem, if you have a situation you need to discuss, come on in, we'll figure it out. So I like to be interactive with employees. You would see me walking around talking to everybody and, being a busybody.
Can you describe your experience in negotiating terms of contract or other binding agreements, either be union contract or bids, that sort of thing?
So could you just repeat the first part of that?
Yeah, sorry. Can you describe an experience in negotiating in terms of a contract or other binding agreements?
Oh, well, the most fun are police and fire contracts. We did, along with my city attorney and our finance director, we did all the negotiations in Eastlake, and I did one in Menominee also. I'll tell you an interesting experience. The firemen would come in with their uniforms for negotiations, their white uniforms, all dressed up, ready to go. I'll never forget them. Doug's a lieutenant. We wanted to change the health insurance. And the contract said you can change the health insurance if it's substantially the same. The wording in there was equal, something to that effect. So Doug says, you can't change health insurance. Actually, the insurance I'll qualify you by saying the insurance we offered was going to be much better, had better benefits, lower deductibles, lower copays. Doug says, you can't change the insurance. It doesn't cover us when we go out of the country. We looked at him and said, Doug, does the current insurance cover you when you go out of the country? No. And one other one, and these are true. I'm not making them up. The service department came in and said, and I'll pick any holiday, but they happened to say, we would like Martin Luther King Day. And we said, off. And we said, yeah, that's a great idea. Which holiday do you want to substitute in its place? Well, that ended that one too. So fire and police in negotiating contracts, we did them fairly. We always ended up with fair agreements. Neither party was happy, but both parties were satisfied. And I think that's the best thing to do in a contract is you have to have give and take. There were some things we really wanted to get out of the contracts and change, and there were some things that they wanted, and we were able to work it all out. And neither party was happy, but neither party was that upset either. Now, with contracts for public works, The main things I've done on those is once you award the bid to the contractor, is make sure they stick with the contract and don't try these change orders or adding things to the contract or, oh, well, we didn't anticipate that, so we have to add. No, 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 no. There's no change orders unless something was really substantially missed. So with those type of contracts, enforcing them, making sure the contractor sticks by their bid and none of these change orders. So
Describe a successful municipal project that you were a part of and your role within that project.
yes. I think the most one I'll choose is in Caddis. We did a complete makeover of the water department. The equipment there was neglected. It was in terrible shape, terrible shape. We got a grant from the state of Ohio, and we put in money from the water and sewer fund and did a complete makeover of the entire water system, water plant. Now, the big thing about that was, and I wrote it in my report if you read it, there were only two bidders. It was a small town. And one of the bidders was a local contractor who started off doing commercial landscaping and expanded into doing some water line replacements. And his bid was $10,000 lower than the other bid. $10,000 on a $1.2 million contract. And that contractor just couldn't believe we didn't award the contract to him. Well, the other bidder was a company out of Toledo, and all they did was water and sewer plants. That was their business. So the city engineer and I went to council, and we said, we can't do this. You have to give it to the second low bidder because they have the experience in the water department, and we can't turn over the water department and the water supply of this village to someone who's never done it before, because this project involved steps. We're going to replace this, this, and that. We're going to replace this, this, and that. And we did it in steps so that the water could keep flowing to the residents. And it turned out well. The water department, water plant was successfully renovated, and now it's going to last another 20 years.
Okay. So, can you tell us about whether you've had an experience where there was a disagreement or some dissension between coworkers within the village and how you dealt with that? And
Just fired them all.
that's one easy way to resolve it.
No,
Approach
let
that
me-
way.
Let me just think for a moment. Probably the one that comes to mind. We had a individual who was the park superintendent of the big lake park we had, where we had renters that would do renting in the summer of motorhomes. They would park it there, and anyway, Scott was his name. He would always have disagreements with the service department as to whose responsibility it was to cut the grass. And he had himself and another assistant and also a lot of summer help. So there really was no need for the service department to cut any of the grass at the park that he managed. It was easily handled by his crew. So I got together with him and Tim, who was the superintendent of DPW, and we hashed it out. And I let both people talk. Let Scott give his side of the story, let Tim give his side of the story, and let them all air their grievances. And then once they got it all out, we were able to come up with an agreement. And Scott ended up mowing the grass, as he should have, and Tim was gracious enough not to, let's say, rub it in. But okay.
In carrying out your duties as an interim manager, you will be required to work outside of normal business hours, and so village is Monday through Thursday from 7 to
5.
5, right? 7 to 5. And of course, we have council meetings in the evening, planning commission meetings, DDA meetings, ZBA meetings, park board meetings. So will you be able to attend those meetings which are outside of normal business hours?
I've done it for 20 years, yeah. Council meetings are always in the evening. DDA meetings, a couple of cities had them. I mean, if you want me to go to DDA meetings, I'll be glad to go. Usually they didn't want the manager to go. They would consult you before the meeting and get everything hashed out and go. Planning commission you need to go to. So the answer to your question is yes. As being a manager or an interim manager, it is the evening, some evening meetings that you need to go to. You need to be there. So, I mean, the straight answer to your question is yes.
Full-time, for full-time employment?
Oh, yeah, sure. Hmm. I like your hours, 7 to 5 and one Friday off. I mentioned it to Kim. And I mean, I've never worked in a place where you've done that. So,
Staff seem to like it, right?
do the employees like it? Yep, good.
3-day weekends.
Why are you interested in becoming the interim manager at Almont?
Well, I like to stay active. It gets some, I retired and I play a lot of golf and travel a little bit, but I like to keep my mind sharp. I like to keep active. I like to feel wanted and needed, if you will. And being an interim manager, you can go into a municipality, do a good job for 3 or 4 months, kind of be like the backup quarterback. Do some good, leave there, say, hey, Ted did a good job while he was here. So to answer your question, to stay active, to stay motivated, to stay useful, those kind of things. Do a good job too. I like to, when I leave somewhere, I like the municipality to say, he did a good job.
So the length of this position may vary due to the specific circumstances with our normal manager. Is there a maximum amount of time you're willing to commit to the position?
6 or 7 years. No, I am retired and it's fine. If you said 3 months, fine. If you said 2 months, fine. If you said you need to stay another month, that's fine.
Okay.
And I really mean that. I am flexible.
Okay.
Okay. I don't have, my kids are all grown. They're all over the place. We go visit them, but no, however long you need me.
Any follow-up questions or anything?
Yeah, so, we have several big projects coming up. One of the key ones that you kind of responded to in the packet that Kim sent you was our DPW pole barn building. So we received some of our first bids in from the engineering firms that are almost double what we budgeted for.
Yeah, I saw that.
Do you have any examples where you've closed the gaps or any wild card ideas where you've, been able to achieve something for a local municipality and still get them within their target budget? Or?
Well, that was a rough one because it did say it was so much higher than anticipated. As I thought about it and wrote my response, one of the things I would think about is maybe you have to scale down a little bit. Maybe you can't have as big a building as you want it to. Or if in fact that is if we go to another engineering firm, if we go to another, getting some more quotes and we find out, that's the true cost, then you may have to wait a little bit and save and get that building and have the money in hand. That was a rough one. I mean, there's no other suggestion other than to get other quotes, other engineering firms to look at it and see if they concur or if they can do it cheaper. I will tell you this, it's been my experience if you say the building cost estimate is $1.5 million, the bids might surprise you and come in at 1.2, 1.1. So I've had a lot of experience where the bids came in lower than we thought.
And then lastly, being from our neighbors to the south, do you have any connections with Michigan government, Michigan legislation, Michigan departments? It just kind of looking through your resume, it was like some short stints here and there throughout the state, but did you develop any relationship that you could leverage to help the village of Elmont out in the future?
If the people are still there, maybe. I would always attend the Michigan Municipal League meetings and our annual meeting we had in Lansing. I had connections with some government officials in Lansing over grants and projects, but I'd have to look at the names and see if there was anybody I still knew. I always like to answer the questions honestly, and I'll say, at this point, I'd say I'd have to look at the names and see if I do, okay? I know the differences between Michigan. Don't be concerned that I don't know Michigan government, because I do. And I know the differences between Michigan and Ohio, although there's so much similarities to Ohio state government and Michigan state government, so.
Thank you.
I guess my question is regarding the yearly budget. So in January, we're going to be starting to do that. And I saw that there was a question that you had responded to regarding the budget. I was curious how when you typically do it, it says you usually do one session on revenue and one session on expenses. And I think in the past, I don't recall exactly how David did it, but I think it was like a different way. So I was just curious on how like flexible you are with, doing different ways of managing like the budget and how you would meet with the different department heads.
I think the question, if I remember, was it was stated that having the budget reviewed by council in one session was sometimes tedious and long. And I agreed with that. And I have never done a budget where we did it all in one night. So that's why I suggested one night we would do revenues, which is I've done in a couple of municipalities, thoroughly go over the revenues. And then the next night the next meeting, do expenses. And then have one meeting after everybody's had a chance to look at the budget and come up with questions or suggestions or changes. Have one meeting to do that and then finalize it. With the department heads, it's always the same wherever I've been, and that is we print out the year-to-date budget. So if you have numbers as of end of November, we would give those to the department heads, let them look at it, and then I would meet with them, with Kim, with usually the financial person, and we would ask them, what changes do you need to make? Do you want to increase anything, decrease anything? Do you have any special capital improvement projects that we need to account for? And then put it all together and give it to council. So it can be a tedious process. I don't know, do you go over line by line by line? Or do you go over it as a whole? So most councils do line by line by line, so don't be concerned if that's what you do.
It's pretty detailed.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Most councils do that. I mean, that's fine. That's your job, is to oversee the budget and ask questions. So
I think our most successful year is when it was broken down by department and then presented to council in chunks like that,
Mhm.
so that we could digest it and then have an opportunity to ask department heads detailed questions about what they were asking for and the cost.
And that would be a good way to do it. You don't have to do revenues and expenses. You can do you could have 3 departments and 3 departments and go over it that way, then put it all together. It's fine. I mean, the budget here I saw is about $2 million, right? 2.24, something like that. And it's a good budget, but it's not a big budget. I've dealt with budgets of 25 and 30 million, where we had one department had $2 million. So, and yours is a normal budget, because I saw the police had about 47% of the budget. So that's typical, where they have about half of the budget, and the rest is divvied out among the other departments. So to answer your question, yeah, I'm open. I mean, if you want to do it by departments, that's fine. Sounds like a good way.
And do you have any questions for the council?
I had thought about it. I mean, you had a couple of big projects there, and I wanted you to know, and I'll ask you this question. I'm trying to form it in a form of a question, more of a statement. If you're looking for someone to manage those projects, you got your guy here, because I've done many big projects like that. I would ask council this, it's a smaller community. What are you looking for in the temporary manager? I consider a temporary manager like a backup quarterback. You come in, you try to win a few games, you keep things moving while the regular quarterback is on the mend. So what types of things are you looking for?
Like the projects we've been talking about, the, road asphalt paving, the shed, those big ones that we've
You
been.
had a water project too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Mhm. I kind of read all of them.
Yeah, and I think your analogy is kind of fair, just to keep the ball moving on these. Obviously, these things take time and we don't expect them all to come to fruition. We have our priorities, obviously, but our biggest need to fill an intern position is just make sure the ball's still moving down the field. So.
And I saw a couple of, there's an RFQ
Yes.
due in December. And then you have is the trash contract up? Because I saw, there was something in there about the trash contract. No? Did I misread it? It was on the website. I thought maybe that was from last year.
And it's stability, keeping the flow going, the ball not being dropped on projects, obviously, just to keep things running as smoothly as we can, because we're facing a
But
situation.
you have to keep them moving along. I mean, there's going to
Right,
be
right.
points where you're going to have meetings with the contractor to see how far they are along, and if there's RFPs that have to be looked at and contracts awarded. I've done all that.
Also handling day to day. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of interruption with resident complaint type stuff and issues like that.
You get complaints from residents?
Once a month.
Just one.
I'll give you one little story. You don't have them here. But in every city I've been in, and this is meant as a compliment, it's not a derogatory, but we call them cave people.
Oh, yeah.
Citizens against virtually everything. There'd be the group there that if you said you got $1 million grant, they would say, why did you get $1.5 million? So.
All of those in Elmont are on social media.
Yeah, right now. Sure,
Exactly.
nowadays, do you do the,
Yep.
yeah, mhm, yeah.
Yeah,
In,
it's on YouTube.
in Cascade, we had questions from people online. In the public portion, they allowed questions from anybody on Skype or listening in, yeah. You're right, though, it's expanded the question. But the same thing I do with employees, I would do with employees, I would do with residents, is come in and talk about it. Now, so I would tell them, sometimes I have to tell you, no, we can't do it. Or that's not government's responsibility to do that, but I want to listen to them. A lot of times they want to air out their differences, air out their complaints, and then once you talk to them a little bit and say, we really would like to do that, but government cannot do that. I can't take down a tree in your backyard. No matter how much you ask, government cannot go on private property and take down your tree. I saw the tree lawn thing you have about if residents want a tree taken down on their tree lawn, we'll call it tree lawn, the area between the,
Right away.
yes, the right of way, right? Mhm.
So you presently reside in Cleveland?
Eastlake, yeah, it's a suburb of Cleveland.
Okay. So cutting to the chase, what would be your living accommodations if your home is there
Yes,
and you need to be up here?
good question. I would have to find a temporary spot here. And when I did Cascade, I stayed in Stay America. It was like an extended stay hotel. I would stay here Monday through Thursday, whatever, go home on weekends with this caveat. As I did in Cascade, I'm always available with cell phone. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if there was something that needed to be dealt with, I could be back in 4 hours. So I hope you don't think that I live in Ohio. I can't hire him because he lives too far away. Okay. Now, with that question, Cascade did give me an allowance for living expenses because I can't get an apartment for a year, because they would charge you 9 months charges if you only live there 3 months. So I would look for an extended stay, even a hotel I could get a good deal at, or something like that. I don't know if that answers your question, but I would stay here, obviously, and just go home on weekends.
Fortunately, I think the extended stay here would be the Speedway bathroom. But I don't know many, we don't have a lot of hotel options around this side of the county, so.
Well, there has, what about,
Airbnb.
yeah, Airbnb or,
Yeah. I know there is a couple hotels in Emily City, I guess. but I
yeah,
don't
that
know
was
if
the
they-
city I'm looking
Yeah.
for, yeah. That you can work out a deal with them. If you tell them you're going to stay 1, 2, or 3 months, they'll give you a discounted rate. So,
So what we're looking at, Ted, is compensation by way of salary. What are your expectations regarding compensation?
well, I think I put that in my response to you. I would accept whatever the current manager is making.
Plus living expenses.
Yes, some allowance for living expenses. Now, it may not be as expensive here as it was in Cascade. I mean, the $2,000 I got in Cascade just covered that extended stay. So, I mean, I would take a look at it and work with you guys on something. We'd find, there will be something. There always is. Could be a room in someone's house that they want to rent out. Could be an Airbnb. Could be a landlord who has a vacant house and will rent it for 3 months. I would have to take a look at all that. But there's a solution.
You'd have to make those arrangements. So,
But do you have an
Now that my
Airbnb?
dog's gone?
See how that Michigan game goes.
Right. Yeah, we could watch the Michigan play, yeah, Alabama, or whatever.
Those
Yeah.
are fair questions, but I think
It
we
just-
would work
it would take a
something
little bit
out.
of time, I would think. I mean, it's fairly well known that we don't have many rental properties available here in Elmont. We have a shortage of rentals and homes to buy as well. So that would be a little bit of a concern, would that process take you some?
I would
significant
tell
amount
you,
of time?
I always have a backup plan. I have, my son's father-in-law works for Choice Hotels. He just retired. So wherever I need a hotel, I get a code from him and get a nice discounted rate. So if there's nothing that someone would rent to me 3 months, a house or apartment, a room, whatever, my backup would be to find a Choice Hotel in one of the neighboring cities and work out a deal with them for 3 months. Okay?
Anybody else have any questions from council? Addressed to Ted. Did you have any other questions of us?
No, I think I found everything online I could find. So you have I would call normal departments at a village I would expect to have, but no fire department. That's good.
Yeah.
You contract out with someone?
The township has.
Township?
control of
In the police department is with the village or the township?
the village.
And the village contracts with the township then, right?
Right.
I saw
provide
some
services.
revenue. Yeah, I saw some
That's where
revenue.
Their compensation is almost, their budget is almost $1 million.
Yeah,
Because we cover village and township.
yeah, I saw that in the budget that there was a contract
Right.
amount. No, that's it. Seems like a nice, I had dinner at Roots, talked to some of the people there. They told me there's a Kroger in Amway City. There's a McDonald's technically in Almont, right?
Yep.
Mhm. And they told me some of the local businesses. And
When you were at Roots, is a key question, did you have the fried pickles?
no, I had they had a special on a chicken dinner. Is a fried pickles a good one there?
Yeah, fried
Yeah.
pickles. That's one of my favorites from there.
I had
My
the
stomach
chicken.
doesn't
I had the
appreciate it,
chicken special, and then I had my undoing, and that was ice cream.
but-
So
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time, Ted.
I
We
wanted to
appreciate-
give Brian the opportunity to ask his question.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's moving around in a seat.
I know, he's getting nervous.
the current manager should have some say. They're already dismissing you.
Let's see, you ask it, and it's your question. So I asked this to the last candidate too, on behalf of all the department heads. We want to know what you could bring to us as far as teaching us things that like other communities are doing. Sometimes it seems like we're teaching like the managers how to deal with certain things, and you know, we really don't know if they're right or wrong. We just kind of make it up as they go. We need a leader is what I'm getting at.
I will tell you this, if you decide to hire me and I don't come up with ideas and help you with different things from my aspect rather than that your side, I'll buy you the biggest steak dinner out there. I do, and I'm just saying this, I have a wealth of experience, and each city is different and each village is different. And there's always something I can bring to say, here's the way we did it here. Can you think about doing it that way? Or this way will be a lot better. So I make that pledge to you. If I don't help you with something from my side, I'll buy you a big steak dinner.
And then the other question was results. We have plans. I personally have been working on, water and sewer plans and everything that Eagle, our state, wants us to do, but there's just no results. I mean, road projects, stuff like that. Well, I guess in my eyes, it's not enough results. I mean, we do get results, but I want the whole town, all new roads, water, sewer, I have high expectations. Can you help with that? Can you do that?
Are your residents willing to pay higher water and sewer rates to get their water and sewer lines replaced?
Probably not.
Okay. You can get some money from the state, but they're not going to pay for the complete redo of your water and sewer lines. It's just not going to happen. You can get money. We got money in Cascade for roads from the revenue sharing. Okay. Yeah.
Covers our wages to plow, salt, sweep. There's not much left over. I mean, so far this year we're doing good because we haven't had a lot of snow.
Yet, don't jinx it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the honest answer to your question is I can always look at it and try. But water and sewer lines, everybody wants replaced. Everybody wants those grants. Everybody wants the free money. And unfortunately, in Cadiz, Ohio, we had to raise the water and sewer rates because the Ohio EPA said, you will do it. We'll take you to court if you won't do it, because their water lines were so old and breaking all the time. And we didn't have the lead problem, but we had water breakage. So I'll look, but it's just rough. All right. Everybody wants that money, free money. Mm-hmm.
Bonus question. I was in Menominee in 1986,
Mm-hmm.
probably 10 or 11 years old. From what I remember, why would you move out of that area? Bear Bay,
Yeah.
Deer Bay, whatever, population's not high.
First of all, I'm a golfer. Okay. And I'm not a hunter and fisherman. Although I did go fishing. I went walleye fishing. It was nice, but it was 12 hours from Cleveland. Okay. And even though my wife was fine when she came up to visit a lot, I couldn't go home every weekend. I mean, I just went home maybe once a month, and my kids were grown, so that was okay. But the grandkids you never saw, so it was just too far. Okay. It was a great community. The mayor I still keep in touch with, and Leon, one of the councilmen there, we always keep in touch. But it was a nice area, just too far. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? Any further questions of us, Ted? If we were to bring you on, I have trouble with Ed's last name.
Just Ted.
Whatever reason, I'd probably stick with Ted.
Yeah, Ted, or Ted A, or whatever. I've had it butchered every way.
Yeah.
My daughter ran track, and it covered her whole back of her jersey.
Yes.
I gotta tell you, the first week I was in Menominee, honest to God truth, minus 10 degrees, actual temperature. We had to have a slow drip on the water lines so that the water lines would not freeze up for people. So that was the welcome to Menominee, minus 10 degrees.
Did they have to dynamite the ground to put the water and sewer in?
No.
Some areas in the UP, it's all rock, and that's what they
have to do?
No, they didn't have to do that, but the biggest problem was even though they were down low, the frost line kept going lower and lower and lower and freezing the pipes. They used, yes, exactly, to open it up.
Lived in Houghton for 5 years.
Oh, well, there you go, Houghton, right?
Yeah.
What's the other city by Houghton?
Hancock.
Hancock, Houghton, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
For coming, appreciate you coming and.
Which way out?
You can go through this way.
I parked where I stuck my head.
Yeah, but you got your phone.
Oh, yeah. I need the GPS to get back, just to get on I-75. Thanks.
So we're gonna decide this evening. We should. We don't really, I'm not in a great position to wait around. Maybe because if we don't, we may have no one running the village. So that's the big thing. And you know, everything's falling on Kim's shoulders. I saw an email from her at 2:58 a.m. Like, when the hell do you sleep? Jesus Christ.
You don't send 2 a.m. meeting
Pardon?
emails? You don't send 2 a.m. emails?
No,
Oh,
no.
you don't wake up like
Not my
panicked
proudest
and then you just
moment.
like, oh, I gotta go send that email. I do.
Usually that well crafted.
Yeah, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, well, maybe that's why you have 4 patents. I don't know. So I'm indicating to council that I think we should discuss whether we are going to make a pick this evening. I'm recommending that we do. So anybody objecting to that, or you want to sleep on it and we'll discuss it again in February? Yeah. Okay.
Before we start discussion, we are live. Last time we were live, other candidates were watching, and council members were casting aspersions of what might be and what might be, when if we have aspersions, we should direct those back to the candidate and not just assume it's fact. Be careful in how you word your opinions.
So IMHO, I thought both of them excellent candidates. I from reading Ted's responses to our questions, I had some concerns, but his presentation I thought was excellent. A good man, lots of experience, and so I think he's a good candidate. On the other hand, Mr. Kerberson, we know had a 20-year experience in the city of Lapeer, excellent reputation. The fact that he is from Lapeer and his connections, and I think he actually said what you hear so often, and I joke about sometimes who you know is as important as who you know. And actually David has indicated that his ability to connect with people and understanding that politics can certainly play a role. And so from that standpoint, I think it gives him quite the advantage. And he certainly, I thought, presented himself very well, appears to be extremely competent. So my vote would be for Mr. Kerberson. And it's not to denigrate Ted, because I thought he presented himself very well, very honest, and not making anything up to give you an answer, well, this is what you'd like to hear. So very, very honest, and I appreciated that. And if we were unable to reach an agreement with Mr. Kerberson, I would certainly consider Ted. I think he presented himself very well. So that's my thing. Council? Other opinions?
My personal opinion, I agree. Both are strong candidates. They, were open and honest. Two things that jumped out at me, some fundamental differences. One seemed to be with the gaps in the cost of the project. One took a more of a I'll go find you the money approach, where the other one was deferring to maybe table it and save some more money and take an attempt later. So if it's the direction of the village where we want to move quickly on these, I want to go for the fighter who's going to go find me the cash. The other deciding factor for me was the living stipend. I mean, obviously, I can't fault them for living in Cleveland. However, it is an additional cost to the taxpayers, and that's something that can't be overlooked at this time. So it makes sense to also go with the other candidate. So, but both very strong. Again, very constructive answers, lots of experience. I think we would both bring some great things to the table, but it's dollars and cents, and who's going to go fight to get what we need. So.
Yeah, and keep in mind that we don't know what exactly each candidate would settle for. I think we have a better idea of numbers from Ted as opposed to Dale. I'm just going to use first names.
Dale.
So, that could become a wash too. We know what, or at least from what you can read in the paper, what Dale made previously with the city of Lapeer, which is substantially more than our current village manager makes. So, that could kind of
No, you're absolutely right. That's an excellent point. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Just want to comment with their
Same
position.
way you do, Steve. My personal opinion. I agree with you.
So I'll play devil's advocate. And I'll let you know my opinion afterwards. But because of past experience at the village with having somebody local or within the general area become an interim manager, do we have any concerns with potential conflict or bad blood following to Elmont? Yeah. Just because, I think we all agree that the intent here is to keep the ball moving, not create distraction.
Well, let's put the onus on the staff here real quick, because last time it was a nightmare for you guys in a certain effect. So you sat through the interviews. Do you anticipate similar issues with what was presented tonight? Clinton, you're being quiet.
For the managers between the two, we need someone, like Brian was saying, we need somebody who's going to be a leader for us and help us run our departments. As far as like for me at the wastewater, it'd be long-term planning on which projects to prioritize, when we're going to do them, when we're going to get the funding, how we're going to get the funding. More financial planning is what I would say.
Very good, Josh.
No, that's fine. That's what I wanted to, because I guess the concern is it kind of stalled us in the past, right? There was, and I wasn't on council, but I lived here for 45 years. So you hear about what worked, what didn't work. And I think we've got the train out of the station. We're going down the tracks here pretty good. Don't want to stall it or have to stop and keep going.
I didn't mean to cut you off, sorry.
Okay.
Were you referring, when you mentioned word bad blood, coming from the city of Lapeer? The people?
Both. So internally, because obviously we still live in small towns, right? We know what happens in Lapeer. Lapeer knows what happens in Elmont. I mean, perfect example is the township thing this last week or so, right? I mean, everybody that I know from Armada to Richmond, Lapeer, Auburn Hills that I know ask me about that. So it's not like we live in this, walled off community where nobody hears the politics of other communities around.
But
So-
you being a reserve deputy, so you pick up on things that we don't necessarily pick up on outside of Elmont. So are you actually hearing about any bad blood towards Kerberson?
No,
I haven't heard any.
I fully agree that the city of Lapeer has definitely turned the corner, not in a good way. And I completely understand why he did what he did. That being said, probably didn't make a whole lot of friends when that happened.
Yeah.
Not because he did anything wrong, probably because he did the right thing.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that was emphasized to me by both Bostic and Caitlin, is that he's a right and wrong sort of guy. And our position here in the village is consistent with what his position was as far as the city of Lapeer. Like, what are you doing to the community? And we don't have that issue here. So that's
So just
consistent.
playing devil's advocate,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we had the discussion.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, bringing in prior associations and your buddies with this person, we've seen that happen before.
Whereas Ted is, he's kind of insulated from that, right? He's coming
Sure.
in, nobody knows him. Nobody can say, he's my brother's friend's whatever, and we didn't like him 20 years ago when we went to high school, right?
Right, yeah.
It's just, he's a new face.
Mhm.
He's here to do a job. He's here to make sure that the village keeps moving forward. Now, I did say that on the flip side, my opinion is, I think right now for us, Dale is the right choice. I think he's got more experience and can help our village grow and learn and think maybe a little bit bigger than we currently are, with the mindset of growth, with that 20 years of experience. And again, I have the same concern as everybody else about accommodations being, that's rough on you to live 4 hours away from your family. Even if you say, that's no problem, it's still not, easy.
Anything that you wanted to input on this, Steve?
I agree with a lot of the discussion here. I appreciate Pete's devil's advocate comments. I think it's good to always think about the flip side of things, even though it might be clear one candidate might be better for the village at this time than another.
I think we're extremely lucky to have two well-qualified candidates. I think this is a great position to be in, to have to decide instead of there being a clear and obvious 100% choice. I think Dale brings with him local connection, local knowledge of legislators and sort of Michigan requirements, which is important. But I also want to say that I like Ted's warmth. He seems very approachable. I think that is important in a manager, to get along with staff and get along with residents. But I don't think that should be discounted, and I think that it's something that we could appreciate and do well with. But probably, I think Dale for me still has the edge, but I would be perfectly comfortable with Ted coming in too. If we can't come to agreeable terms, I'm very happy that we have him also as a backup.
It's fortunate that you want to speak to the issue. Tim.
I would like to say you go with the guy with the tie, but in this instance, in this instance, I think they bring different, entities to, within themselves. I think the gentleman from Lapeer brings more action now. But the biggest concern with that is that the other intern we had brought action now, but he brought it with his, and I don't think this is the case with the gentleman from Lapeer, but he brought his action now, but it was what he wanted to do, how he thought it had to be done, and it was going to be done my way or no way. And we can't have that. But I don't get that vibe from this gentleman, so that's good. I think the strength that no one else has mentioned with Ted is he's interned before.
Yes.
He's interned before, so he knows the gig, he knows the expectation, he knows how to come in and get accommodated and get moving, and has a pretty good, I think he has a pretty good handle on how an interim position works and works it well. And no one else has mentioned that. I think
That is a plus.
That is a
I think
big
that's
deal.
a big
Yeah.
strength.
Yeah, that is a big
But I
deal.
think, on the other hand, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him in. I agree with Mindy if negotiations with the Lapeer gentleman don't work out. I think my concerns are what Ed echoed, the fact that the Lapeer gentleman says, I'm going to go get you money, I'm going to do this, and the other guy just kind of said, well, we'll make it smaller. That concern, that was a concern.
Jumped out at me.
And obviously the distance thing is a concern. Although if he can go to Menominee for 3 months and be successful there.
In the winter.
He can go anywhere and be successful. So, and I think that the gentleman from Lapeer has a better handle on infrastructure. I think Ted is more, I could be wrong on that, but on the day-to-day, I think Ted is more financially, I mean, he's done big projects, but I think the Lapeer gentleman's answers and his responses were more detailed and more impressive. But to tell you the truth, outside of David and the last round of full-time candidates, both of these guys are better than anybody else we interviewed in those rounds, by far. By far. So,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with everybody else that the approach would be to figure out the negotiation patterns, to discuss it with the gentleman from Lapeer, and if that falls through, then reach out to them.
So Brian and Kim, I guess, as department heads, you echoed that you want results. Now, sometimes results mean somebody's got to come in with a hammer and make decisions and push forward. And not that I'm anti-Ted or whatever, but yeah, he may have a softer approach where we're just going to manage and we're going to get things done and push things through, but he's not going to come in and rock the boat. But sometimes results are painful. Are you guys willing?
Fair point.
If you want those results, we'll give you the manager that sounds like he's going to give you the results. So,
I think the residents need the results,
okay.
okay?
And I 100% agree.
Well, I think the difference is this. I think the candidate we're talking about compared to the and nothing against the former interim, he did get some things done, is the personality approach and the management style approach. And I think reading your guys' vibe, that's a totally different vibe. And he'll come in and question how things are done, but he'll also listen. But we also have to ask you guys that if he says you're doing it this way and you guys say that's the way we always do it, you're asking for training, so you're asking for new things. So staff also has to be open-minded to his ideas. And staff also has to let us know if the train's going off the tracks after a couple of weeks. Council needs to know so we can take appropriate actions also. So,
So, do we have a motion?
We heard Brian's thoughts, so I didn't hear yours, Kim.
I think both, like you said, I mean, we're in a very good position. Those two are excellent candidates. I think Dale has more experience with what projects we have going on right now
Specifically, yeah.
and can keep the ball moving. But again, both of them, it's a hard pick. But that's the slight advantage, is that I think he's had enough experience with all of those types of projects to be able to keep the ball
What's
moving
really
forward.
impressive to me, Kim and I were dealing with the water situation when GLWA, their main broke. He got 100% reimbursement, which we almost did too, but then he got extra money to put backup generators on all the well houses.
Yeah.
He got all the lead. They had vac trucks in there that week and started looking and searching for the lead. He got money for it, grant money. I mean,
He can get stuff done. I mean, we've seen
that's
He's
how
a doer.
I feel he can get things done. And I'm to the point in my career where, I'm planned out. We got plans. We changed the plans. We had plans. I can show you the plans. So I'm a little impatient, but I want results,
Okay.
would it be a motion at this point, or consensus to approach?
Well, yeah, it depends on how you want to go forward. So do you want the selection committee to continue to negotiate?
Negotiations.
A contract?
Yes, yeah.
Then I would say you'd probably have to make that motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion that the selection committee continue, or give the selection committee the, what's the word I want? Authority to continue negotiations with the candidates involved in the interviews to negotiate a deal, specifically with the
Aren't we actually picking one of the candidates over the other? And if it doesn't work out,
Okay,
So-
I will make the motion that I'll make the motion that we enter into negotiations with, Mr. Dale Carbison to fill the position, start over. I make the motion to give the authority to the hiring committee to enter into negotiations with Dale Carbison in the position of interim manager. Does that cover it?
Support.
Sorry, it was 3 takes.
okay. So motion made by President Pro Tem Dyke, supported by Councilmember Feldman, selecting Dale Carbison as the first choice of council, and to have the selection committee enter into negotiations with Mr. Carbison. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously adopted by council. Okay.
You have one question for Kim. Based on Mr. Trent's current condition, being out on disability, is that coming out of the general fund budget, or is that covered by some
Insurance.
insurances?
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be no additional budgetary cost at this point. Okay.
Correct.
thank you. Yep.
Right.
Unless the selection committee decides that, obviously there's the possibility that Mr. Carbison's offer comes in higher than the current salary.
Yeah, I'm just,
So-
it
so
wouldn't
it's-
be Dave's salary plus on top of. yeah.
So we would have to at that time make the decision as the extra worth. going with.
Yeah, if there's a problem with the negotiations, then obviously the selection committee has to come back to council
Right.
and let them know.
Right.
And maybe with some
I just wanted
alacrity.
to point out there was the possibility that
Oh, sure.
it could come in higher and we might decide to take that. depending on
Yeah.
what we thought.
Sure. Okay, moving on, regular agenda, number 3, wastewater treatment plant overhead door quotes. Clint?
Okay, so gathered, I have 5 quotes here. If you look at the paperwork, there's 5 here. It's an insulated roll-up door, so the cost of the door isn't comparable to a standard sectional door. That room has explosion-proof. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, that room has explosion-proof controls. So the explosion-proof controls add on to much of the cost. So we obviously had Elmont overhead door. They don't do insulated doors. So the quote I recommend is the FJF quote. It's $2,310. And because of the price disparity from the other quotes, I called to make sure that the quotes were apples to apples. It would be, and it was. He hasn't put eyes on the project yet, and wants to put eyes on the project if he is going to do the work.
Change order if they're,
That's what I'm wondering is if there's any minor changes, if there's any changes that could result in a few $1,000s either way, probably up.
Did the other bidders put eyes on the project, or?
Yeah, all of the other bidders have.
Okay.
That's my only concern with them, but the price seems pretty good on that.
my concern is if he hasn't put eyes on it and he comes back with a change order, then all of a sudden we're paying more than Davison's offered.
Right.
Yeah, I would.
Right.
And last time we met, there was a question about whether or not the explosion-proof control was required, recommended, or completely unnecessary. Where did we land on that?
It's my opinion it's necessary.
So based on,
It's just based on the rest of the room. It should go in order with how the rest of the room is designed. I don't know if that's code or not, but
so we talked about figuring out if it is code or not. Did you have a discussion with CCA or anyone to find out
no,
what code requires?
no. I don't know where to go for that, for the code requirements. And I'm not sure on Davison overhead door. They probably do an okay job, but they helped us remove the door, but they're a little rough around the edges. So they have a good price, and they would probably do the work, but we could consider them.
Do you have any sense of what the cost might be if it wasn't explosion proof?
You would lose about $6,000 off the quote. The KVM door systems quoted a 6,000 markup for explosion proof. So the motor has never been explosion proof in the room. Previously, it was supposed to be, it was spec'd to be explosion proof, but it never was. It was discovered to be just a standard exposed motor. But you do have gases in the room. So we should find what the code is on what's required in the room, and
Perhaps KVM, since they're the original one quoting you, and they're the ones that recommended the explosion proof. Do they know of any codes, or did they just go by the makeup of what they seen in the
no, I recommended the explosion proof that we go with it, but it would make sense to go with the code and see if it's required.
You know, I definitely don't want to place any employee safety at risk. It's just a question of, is it needed, or that's just what was there before, so we're gonna.
Yeah, we don't know if it's code required or not.
If it hasn't been there all along, yeah. I mean, if it's not required, it's $6,000, so it's not exactly something to laugh at if it's that much of a cost difference, so.
Should we
Yeah.
just table it till he does some more research?
Think we should know the answer to that.
Right, yeah.
I thought we would have that answer
Electric
this
Code
evening.
Authority would be the proper person to come out and inspect that.
Or Eagle, why is it designed that way?
There's hazardous gases in the room, so when you open the door, it triggers a fan to evacuate the gases. It could be.
It might also be National Electrical Code or National Fire Code.
Right.
I think it would have more to do with electric code than Eagle,
I
but
would think so.
Yeah. NEC or NFPA would probably have, either one of those would have what the requirement for an explosion-proof enclosed space is.
And that would be TCA, right?
You should be able to steer us in the right direction.
Yeah.
So maybe reach out to them.
So sounds like we're not quite there yet. We need a little more information to make proper choice.
Get that number for you.
So do we currently have a door on there? Is the door closed? Or is
the
it-
door is shut.
Okay.
It's still on the track. No.
Temperature's dropping.
Yeah. So sounds like we table it.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then what did you say about what part isn't explosion proof that's in that room?
The motor.
The motor for the
Current
door?
motor.
Yeah. Yeah, the current motor is not explosion proof. The controls and the switches are, but the motor at the actual drive motor is exposed, which is where all the gases would collect anyway. So I think we should look at the code for that.
Okay. Moving on to regular agenda item number 4, Kennedy Industries invoice, where they explain that we're not reducing our invoice.
So I talked to Travis Cole. He's our manager and our main point of contact. I sent him a request asking for a discount on it with our reason, the email conversations. It's here on one of the pages here, page 60. I requested, I asked him for 30%. He said, let me talk to my, talk to his associates, and it took a few days. He came back to me, and you can see the reply here. He says they have no wiggle room on it. We signed an agreement to begin work on the pump, and he mentioned that that they eliminated the markup for he eliminated markup on the impeller. So he said he was already helping us out, and to discount it, he said Kennedy would be at a loss. So they don't want to reduce the price.
Said in last meeting, I know I wasn't here, I watched the last meeting. This will replace one of the 2 other rebuilt pumps that we have. This would be a spare impeller for 2 pumps that we have in service today.
Yes. Yeah. It can be used in the other 2 pumps as a replacement impeller. So it is interchangeable with the 2 that are there right now. we're still waiting for the third pump. It's manufacturer is producing it.
For the drop-in replacement third,
Right. Yep.
and that's a backup pump.
Well, one of them acts as a backup, but you need the three to rotate them
Yeah.
if you have problems with one, because the two have to be in service at all times.
Mhm.
So that's what he came back with, and I haven't corresponded further with him. Just what do you think? I'm not.
Just trying to catch up here. So we're looking at the costs of the impeller plus the labor to take out that pump.
Yeah, so the labor part of the price is just, they did pull the pump, and that's for transport and for teardown. So they came in with a 3-man crew, removed it very quickly and transported it.
So it's the 71, 65, 75.
Yeah, it would be yeah, they already performed the work on the second line item, so.
7165.
And then you have the original quote they gave me for, I thought I seen a copy here, for the total cost of the job was gonna, about 17 to 19 grand or so.
I don't think at this point we're gonna get any discount out of it.
I don't think so either.
Number two, going forward, and I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, we should have a standard policy where we quote a new price on a new pump first because the new pump was gonna be cheaper anyway. And B, we don't have any work done on the old pump until it's torn down and confirm that it can be rebuilt.
Yes, yep. I agree with both of those. Yeah, I was on track to rebuild the 2 pumps.
But the problem is we said, hurry up with this, start making the part, and we didn't know that the pump was not rebuildable. So
yeah, we were in a little bit. I would say we were in a pinch, maybe a bind. So
even in a bind, we need to slow down and think it through, though.
Yeah, we were more concerned with the speed of the job than any other aspects, I would say.
We have to think about those other aspects first.
Yes. Yep.
With that said, this is for Kennedy, right?
Yep. It's Kennedy.
Yep. With that said, I'll make the motion. We approve the invoice from Kennedy for
$7,165.75. Motion made by President Pro Tem Dykes, supported by Councilmember Glasser, to approve the Kennedy Industries invoice as stated on the record. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Objections? Unanimously approved by council. So now it's time for public comment, time for non-agenda items. Doesn't appear to be any public comment. And we might as well have comment time because we're supposed to go into closed session. So anything to bring to council, Kim?
Really quick, FNV is going to submit an application for an intent to apply tomorrow because that is when the deadline is for an EPA climate pollution reduction grant. Basically, it's a no-match grant for installing solar arrays at the wastewater treatment plant, energy efficiency upgrades to to meet facilities, that type of stuff. So basically, we just have to get in line. Is that what that intent to apply is? So he said there is no cost. I didn't see that there was a harm in that. So, but I wanted you all to be aware.
Are we paying for their time to submit that, or are they doing it in anticipation of future work?
When I asked if there was any cost involved, he said no.
Okay.
But it's a good question. So I will confirm that with him before we submit.
Wayne?
Nothing at this time, just wish everyone a happy holiday and a new year.
Thank you. Looking forward to 2024. Pete?
No, sorry, I missed last meeting. It's kind of out of my control. I had planned on being here. I kind of touched on it at the start of the thing, start of the meeting tonight. I'd like to see the DDA director more present. It is a full-time position now. I think we started off with good representation, and we're working, trying to build this collaboration between the village and the DDA, and only when it really is like high profile do we get present. So I think even presence for the mundane should be considered. I mean, at least an update on what's going on a monthly basis would be nice. And future plans. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Nothing.
Don't want to stay here another couple hours?
Clint, UL specification, UL 1203. It discusses a standard of explosion-proof and dust ignition-proof electrical equipment to be used in hazardous classified locations. So that might be a good place to start. It looks like you do have to purchase a standard, but you might be able to get around that query a little bit more. So just a quick Google search on that is what I came up
Okay.
with real fast here.
So the CCA is,
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So yeah, that's
So they would know, for sure.
They're going to be the ones that have to come inspect the work.
Okay.
So if they don't tell you the right thing, then they won't approve your work.
so yeah.
Well, the manufacturer, it was McNamee Porter Sealy, was in charge of the designing and specing and putting the non-spec motor in there. But would that have any bearing on the code with the manufacturer?
If the motor's being replaced, CCA will tell you when you're replacing it, if it requires.
If it's legally required?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Other than that, I reiterate, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Steve?
What's up?
There was a communication from a citizen, don't necessarily know from where, inquiring about the village's audio, our system, and the township position. He'd heard somebody was taking a position that they had already paid for it, whatever.
You're
Have
talking
we
about
heard?
live streaming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, terminology, which I'm terrible at these days, leaving me way behind. So if we heard anything from township, or any discussions as far as them coming into our system and paying appropriately?
I am to prepare a memo because the cost is above the township supervisor's authority, so it has to go before their board. I'm giving them an invoice, what it cost for the microphone system, the camera, and the computer.
And for the record, we did offer that when we installed the system.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
that is on record.
Which
Official
was
record.
rejected, yes.
Right.
And talking about rejections, township didn't want to follow our lead, but Imlay City did, as far as bringing on Wade Trim and Caitlin. So township said no and kept their guy stuck to the old school thing. And Imlay City said, we're hearing good things about Wade Trim and Caitlin, and they've hired him. So,
Well, it'll be nice. I'm, happy that
Yes.
they are going to take a step towards transparency, which, I appreciate that as a township taxpayer as well. That, their meetings will now be open to the public and more accessible. So I applaud them for taking that step. a little belatedly, but I think it's a move in the right direction.
I mean, I remember when, I don't know if you were on council yet, Tim, when council was first approached about televising our meetings, and no community in Lapeer County was doing that, and I was a little bit hesitant. I remember my concern was that council would feel self-conscious being on television. There was some resistance to that effect, but we ended up going along with it. And after 2 or 3 meetings, you didn't even know it. But we were the first community in Lapeer County to do that, talking about the transparency thing. So that was good. Were you on council yet when that happened? Yeah. So that was a real plus. I think that brings.
Make the motion that we enter into closed session in accordance with section 8H of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, being Public Act 267 of 1976, to review an attorney-client communication dated December 7th regarding 114 South Main sewage. We didn't have to report on this. What's a roll call that, don't we?
Yes.
Motion made by President Pro Tem Dykstra, by Councilmember Feldman, to enter into closed session, and roll call.
Stefan.
Aye.
Dyke. Feldman.
Aye.
Lesser.
Aye.
Kulagowski.
Aye.
Powell.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye. Unanimously approved.